My name is Emily Carter, and until that summer, I thought I had mastered the art of keeping secrets. On the surface, I was the daughter every parent would be proud of, smart, responsible, and always careful not to cross the lines my parents had drawn. I grew up in a small Ohio town where gossip traveled faster than the wind, and because of that, I made sure never to give anyone a reason to talk about me. But deep down, I was hiding something so heavy, it was only a matter of time before someone found out. The story begins in the summer before my sophomore year of college. I had just returned home after finals, eager to spend a few months in the familiar comfort of my parents' house. Everything in our neighborhood looked the same. The trimmed lawns, the rows of mailboxes, the smell of barbecues floating through the air. But I wasn't the same girl who had left for school the year before. At college, I had met Mark. He was charismatic, older, and he seemed to understand me in ways no one else did. He wasn't like the immature boys who filled my classes. He was established, confident, and he gave me attention I didn't even know I craved. But there was one problem, a big one. Mark was married. I told myself it wasn't serious. I told myself it was temporary, just a connection that made me feel seen. But every time my phone buzzed with his name, guilt rushed through me. I avoided telling anyone about him, not even my closest friends. It was my hidden life, my hidden sin. When I came back home for the summer, I thought I could manage it. After all, Mark was still in the city. Our contact would be limited to phone calls, texts, and occasional video chats. I thought I could keep everything under control. But secrets have a way of finding the light when you least expect it. One afternoon in June, I was sitting in the living room with the curtains drawn. My parents were out visiting family friends, and I thought I had the house to myself. Mark had just called, and our conversation was longer than usual. His voice filled my ear, sweet and dangerous. I laughed softly, whispered things I shouldn't have, forgetting for a moment where I was. I didn't hear the front door creak open. I didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. I was too caught up in the world I had built for myself, too consumed by the lie I was living. And then it happened. A throat cleared behind me. I froze. My phone slipped from my hands, landing on the couch with a dull thud. Slowly I turned, and there he was, my Uncle James. He stood in the doorway, holding a small box of tools. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes saw everything. "Emily," he said slowly, "who were you talking to?" My heart pounded in my chest. Words tangled in my throat. I could have lied. I could have said it was a classmate, a friend, anyone. But his voice had the kind of weight that made lies feel impossible. "It's complicated," I whispered, barely able to meet his gaze. James walked into the room and placed the box on the coffee table. He didn't look angry, not yet, but his silence was worse than any lecture. He sat down across from me, his eyes steady. For a long moment, the room was filled only with the faint ticking of the wall clock. "Complicated doesn't mean right," he finally said. Tears stung my eyes. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I hadn't planned for this, that I hadn't meant to fall into something so wrong. But what defense could there be? I was involved with a married man. There were no excuses that could make that okay. I lowered my face into my hands. "Please don't tell my parents," I whispered. James leaned back, his arms crossed. "Emily, I'm not here to ruin you. But you can't keep walking down this path. You're playing with fire." His words cut deep because they were true. And yet, hearing them out loud made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. Until then, my secret had lived in the shadows. Now it stood in the light of day, staring me in the face. I braced myself for anger, for disappointment, but instead James did something I didn't expect. He told me a story, his own. "When I was your age," he began, "I thought I was smarter than everyone else. I thought I could get away with anything. And I nearly lost everything because of it." I looked up, startled. My uncle was known for his discipline, his honesty, his quiet strength. I never imagined he carried his own mistakes. He continued, "I was married to your aunt, and I let myself get too close to someone at work. It started out harmless, just conversations, lunches, but it grew. And before I realized it, I was on the edge of throwing away my marriage. I didn't go through with it, but the damage it did nearly broke us." His voice was calm, but the weight in his words was heavy. "Your aunt forgave me, but it took years to rebuild the trust. That one mistake followed me for a long time. Emily, the choices you make now will stay with you. Don't let them define you the wrong way. I sat there, stunned. For the first time, I saw my uncle not as the perfect man I had always believed him to be, but as someone who had fought his own battles with temptation and regret. The tears I had been holding back spilled over. I don't know how to stop, I admitted. I care about him, but I know it's wrong. James leaned forward, his eyes softening. Then you have to choose yourself. Because he won't. Men like that never do. If he loved you, really loved you, he wouldn't put you in this position. End it before it consumes you. That night, I lay awake replaying his words. They haunted me, but they also gave me clarity. I realized I had been clinging to something that wasn't love at all. It was a shadow, a hollow connection built on lies. The next morning, I sent Mark a message. My hands trembled as I typed the words, "This has to end. I can't keep living like this." His reply came quickly, full of protests and promises. He said he'd leave his wife, that we could have a future. But deep down, I knew it was empty. If he hadn't left her before, he never would. With tears streaming down my face, I blocked his number. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever faced. I battled heartbreak, shame, and the gnawing voice in my head that asked, what if? But I also felt something I hadn't felt in months, freedom. For the first time, I wasn't hiding. My uncle never told my parents. Instead, he became my confidant, checking in on me, reminding me that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about standing back up after you did. Our bond grew stronger, not because he approved of my mistake, but because he chose to help me learn from it. Looking back now, I realized that the scariest moment of my life, being caught in my worst secret, was also the moment that saved me. My uncle's presence that day was no accident. It was the wake-up call I needed. And maybe that's what family is really about, not pretending we're perfect, but helping each other find the right path when we've lost our way.